Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Kevin Burns, and I'm the interim CEO of University of Arizona Healthcare. University of Arizona Healthcare is the parent of University Medical Center, where this Level 1 Trauma Center is located. In a few minutes, I'm going to turn the microphone over to our frontline doctors, Dr. Peter Ree, Dr. Michael Lamole. Those are the folks I think you want to hear from the most about the condition of the 10 patients we now have at UMC in the aftermath of yesterday's tragedy. Before I do that, I do want to make a few brief comments, and I promise I'll be brief. I want to thank the first-line responders that were on the scene yesterday, the law enforcement officers, the EMTs, paramedics, the flight crews, the ambulance crews. You all made a difference, and you saved lives. I also want to thank Dr. Ree, Michelle Zimba, and our trauma team. I have always held our people here in the highest regard. They've always inspired me, but I've never been so proud of my life as I was yesterday as I rose to the occasion in almost combat conditions. I also want to thank our emergency physicians who rose to the occasion yesterday to help out in this crisis, all of our nurses, and our staff. That includes our social workers, our clergy, and all of our support crew. Yesterday was a challenging day for Tucson, the state of Arizona, and the nation. But we'll get through this. I'm convinced of that after I saw the way people pulled together yesterday. In a minute, again, I'll turn the microphone over to Dr. Ree. We plan to do daily updates at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And we'll hang around if you have questions afterwards. I know there are a lot of questions. For now, I'd like to, by the way, I'd like to thank Mayor Bob Walkup for being with us here today. Steve Goldschmidt, the Dean of the College of Medicine, for joining us here today. And I'd also like to introduce President Robert Shelton. He is the president of the University of Arizona who would like to make a few brief remarks, and then he'll turn it over to Dr. Peter Ree. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Like Kevin Burns, I will be brief because the individuals you want to hear from are the gentlemen on my right in the white coats. I also want to acknowledge the first responders, all who were engaged in the critical timeline that occurs from the first incident to getting people into the operating room and in the hands of these exceptional individuals. Another individual that I want to mention here is the Chair of Surgery, Rainer Grusner. He'll have a word or two to say. Dr. Grusner joined us about 3.5 years ago and has built an extraordinary team in surgery and in trauma. You will hear from them later on. I think it's safe to say that this team is second to none, and the timeline, the rapid response that they had here has saved lives, nothing short of saving lives. You will hear, as Kevin said, from Dr. Lamole. He's Chief of Neuroscience, Neurosurgery, and Dr. Ree, who spoke yesterday, who's Chief of Trauma, Critical Care, and Emergency Surgical Care. And so I offer on behalf of the entire University of Arizona community, certainly Tucson, Arizona, and beyond that, our appreciation and thanks for the remarkable skills of these individuals. The University of Arizona is proud to be associated with UA Healthcare and to play a role in this. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Rainer Grusner, who is Chair of Surgery here at University of Arizona and at UA Healthcare, UMC. Rainer.
Thank you, Dr. Shelton. I will be very brief. This is obviously a sad day for the families, for the community, for the state of Arizona, and for the nation. Our hearts go out to the families of the victims. This is something we are rarely prepared for, as we think, but yesterday we were fortunate enough to have Drs. Ree and Lamole here. Within an hour, 6 patients were in the operating room. We had 4 trauma surgeons in the operating rooms. 2 neurosurgeons were here. We had a cardiothoracic surgeon, a vascular surgeon here. It took 38 minutes for the most critical injured person to be transferred to the operating room. And it is my great pleasure to introduce the 2 individuals that are crucial in the recovery of the victims to you now. Dr. Peter Ree, who has served our nation with great distinction in foreign wars, both in Afghanistan and Iraq, and Dr. Lemole, who is the chief of neurosurgery, who joined us a year and a half ago. It is as always the readiness, the willingness of people to support us, not just the physicians, but also the people in the operating room. Everyone else did a marvelous job yesterday. And I think our community, the state, can be proud of what happened here within a very short time yesterday. Peter?
Thank you very much. My name is Peter Ree. I'm the Trauma Medical Director here at University of Arizona University Medical Center. Again, we suffered a tragedy here. I never thought I would experience something like this in my own backyard, and I have a lot of sympathy and empathy for the patients who came through here and their families, and this is a very trying time period for all of us. So again, our condolences, especially to the patients and their families. My update is going to be fairly short, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lemole, who's on my side here, one of my partners. We had a combination in total of 11 patients that we had seen here at the hospital. The first one was a 9-year-old child who came in dead. We tried resuscitative efforts, including surgery on her, but we were not able to resuscitate her and bring her back. We had 5 patients who were brought to us in serious condition. Of those patients, we had additional 5 patients who were not in such a dire situation or critical situation, but we ended up doing 6 surgeries, and that surgeries included a variety of things in a trauma combat type of scenario. It was a mini mass casualty in some senses, and we were doing things in the chest, the abdomen, also vascular, cardiothoracic, and also orthopedic in nature as well. As of this morning, we're happy to state that only 1 patient remains in critical condition, and I think that we'll be able to discuss that patient in a little bit more detail and give you information. The rest have been moved out of the ICU unit. We still have 3 in serious condition, and the rest are in fair or good condition, with 1 patient being discharged. We all know that the 1 patient in the ICU right now in the serious condition is Congresswoman. And so at this point, what I'll do is I'll turn over to Dr. Lemole, the Chief of Neurosurgery here, and he can give you some more information.
Thank you again. I'm Michael Lemole, Chief of Neurosurgery here at University Medical Center in the University of Arizona. And I want to again reiterate that our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of all of those affected here. Let me first reiterate what a lot of people have said, which is the incredible effort here. It's a team effort. It's a team effort at a level 1 trauma center. And that kind of resource enables this effort. Everything from the ER physicians, the support staff, and nursing, Dr. Ree and his team, who were able to triage the patient and get the patient to the OR in 38 minutes. And then the staff that helped with the OR case, not the least of which my partner, Dr. Martin Wynand, who operated next to me, the anesthesiologists and all of the support staff. And again, this kind of effort, this kind of outcome is really possible because of these resources. So let me take you back to the sequence of events to clear up some of the information out there. Congresswoman Giffords was shot in the head. When she arrived here, the reports were that she was, in fact, able to follow commands, that is to say, responsive to verbal communication. We very quickly got her back to the OR, as you heard, within 38 minutes. And once in the OR, we went through our routine procedure for this kind of injury. And that consisted of controlling the bleeding, which, thank goodness, was not severe or excessive. Our next objective was to take the pressure off the brain, and that was by removing the bone fragments that were caused by the bullet fracture, as well as some additional bone to allow the brain to relax. And lastly, we removed any small parts of devitalized brain, and I'm happy to say we didn't have to do a whole lot of that. At that point, she returns to the ICU. Now, I will tell you briefly that when we talk about gunshot wounds to the head, the things that are most concerning to us are if the bullet crosses from one hemisphere to the other, one side to the other, if the bullet crosses through the geometric center of the brain. And I'm happy to say that those were not the case in this instance. And because of that, Congresswoman Giffords is able to communicate with us this morning through following of simple commands. And we're very encouraged by that. We are still in critical condition. Brain swelling at any time can take a turn for the worse, but I am cautiously optimistic. At this point, I'll turn it over back to Dr. Ree because he'll talk about the critical care management that will be so vital in her care for the next few days.
Thank you, Dr. Lamole. As he mentioned, that she came in and was following very simple commands, was not verbalizing at that time before the surgery. And then after surgery, she was under anesthesia, so it was hard to say whether she's in a coma-type state. But when we lightened up the anesthetics and did their examination, we were very happy and optimistic because eventually over the course of the evening, she was able to follow simple commands. Again, this is very early in our course. We don't know what's going to happen, what her deficits will be in the future or anything like that, and we'll be able to give you those updates as we go along. But we've been very happy with her hospital course. Her blood transfusions have worked well. She's not coagulopathic. We've been able to use hypertonic saline and other things, but things are going very well, and we're all very happy at this stage. So with that, at this point, I think I'll open up the floor for questions.
Has she, you said it's been simple commands, has she verbalized it all? And we were also told that there was a reunion of sorts with her husband last night and she didn't recognize him. Can you talk about that?
No, we can't get into too much more detail than what we already have, but I can tell you that right now, with the type of surgery, her eyes, she can't open her eyes at this point from mechanical standpoints, and she's also on the ventilator, so she can't speak at this time.
Can you explain what a simple command is and what kind of process you go through?
It could be anything as simple as please squeeze your hand or show us 2 fingers. Very simple. But one thing I want to emphasize here is we take those kind of simple commands for granted, but they imply a very high level of functioning in the brain.
Yeah, I mean, this also he didn't mention was this is transhemispheric. This wasn't a little grazing wound through the brain. This was a devastating wound that traveled the entire length of the brain on the left side. And, you know, he's downplaying some of the efforts. I mean, they saved their lives. The neurosurgeons, Dr. Wine and Dr. Lamole, saved their patients' lives. So, you know, with the function that she had before the surgery tells us how much injury the bullet did, but the fact that she had a lot of preservation before surgery is what making this situation as well as it can. And of course, as time goes on, the cavitation effects from the bullet itself is going to have some degeneration of brain cells and matter. So we have to see what happens later on.
Because she has gotten through the first 24 hours, is that vital and is that a good sign? Everyone always talks about the first 24 hours being so critical.
So let me just take you through a couple time points. One of the most important is how she was before the surgery. In brain injury, but particularly gunshot wounds, we have a primary injury. That is the damage done by the bullet as it traverses. We cannot fix that, unfortunately. Then there is secondary injury, and that is the injury caused by the subsequent swelling and the changes. That we can try and mollify. And again, if she comes in and is able to follow commands, that implies that those brain circuits are still working. Very important. And the more we see them working after the surgery, particularly in that first 24, 48, 72 hours, the much more encouraged we are.
Where did the bullet hit in the brain? Where did it go through?
It went through on the left side, basically from the back to the front.
What does the left side control?
In most people, the left side controls their right-sided strength, sensation. In most people, it also controls their speech functions, their ability to understand speech or make speech. And that includes the ability to understand simple commands.
How long was the surgery?
The surgery took about 2 hours. There was a little bit of an extension at the end of the case. We had one of our oculoplastic surgeons perform a decompression because one of the fractures was affecting the eye socket. That didn't take much longer.
In a best case scenario, you gentlemen have been through this before, sadly, but what are we talking about prognosis in the best case scenario of time of recovery? How long might the Congresswoman have to be in the hospital? How long does recovery like this take, or is it a lifetime of recovery?
Well, one thing I want to be clear is that we don't speculate on the degree of recovery because we've seen the full gamut, and it really is not productive. But in neurosurgery, we talk about recovery on the order of months to years. And in fact, we don't even close the book on it until we're several years out. There is a general rule of thumb that the faster you recover, the better your recovery will be. But again, that is a general rule of thumb and does not apply necessarily in all individual cases. It is not uncommon after these kind of injuries to be in the ICU for at least a week, maybe in the hospital for 2 to 3 weeks. And no doubt there will be a rehabilitative phase, and that could take weeks to months. But beyond that, setting an actual fast date, I think, is not productive.
What kind of signs will you be looking for in terms of progress over the next couple of days, the next week?
Well, actually, it's going to be how her